It's challenging when you have a skill set that you're really good at teaching and you're not really sure how to transition that into coaching. This week's guests and I sit down and come together to talk about what it means to begin teaching people your skill set and learn the art of coaching. Hey, I'm Amanda, and welcome to the Best Damn Coach podcast, where I will teach you how to coach yourself, how to coach your clients, and how to run your coaching business. The number one goal of this show, though, is to help you be the best damn coach you can be so your clients go out and tell the world about you. So, let's do the damn thing. Hey coaches, before we get started on this week's episode, I want to let you in on a brand new training for you that is now live. I've been working on this behind the scenes and I'm so excited to bring it to you starting now. The coaching industry is saturated. There are so many people out there doing what you do. So the question is, how are your people going to find you? In this live training, I'm going to break it down for you simply. So if you're a coach who wants to grow their coaching business without spending all of this unnecessary money on marketing and Instagram ads and Facebook, if you're a coach who sometimes has doubt and imposter syndrome, like how are my people going to find me? Is this really something I can do to break that six-figure mark? And if you're a coach who really just wants to be so amazing for your people and help them create results, but most importantly, you're a coach who wants to be found by your dream clients, then come join this free training where I'm going to walk you through the 3 steps necessary to make this happen so you can stand out in a crowded market. So head on over to amanda-walker.com/masterclass, and you can pick the time that best works for your schedule and learn how to stand out so that your dream clients can find you. All right. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited you guys are joining me this week as we have a male voice on the show, which is new and exciting. And you're going to hear a lot more men join us more frequently because there's some amazing men I've had the opportunity to meet on my entrepreneurial journey. And today joining me is Dustin, and he's going to tell more about himself. But I just want to say welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
Hey, Amanda. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I definitely am so blessed to be able, well, first, I love the term successfully unemployed. So I invest in real estate, I coach people and all that great stuff. And because of that, I'm able to not have to work a job and still provide for my family, but then get to come on podcasts and talk to great people like you and just share as much as I can with other people that not working for somebody else is actually possible. And you can do this on your own. So yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat about kind of your whole story, just to really remind the listeners that you can take anything that sets your heart on fire and teach others how to do it. And we can formally call that a coach or not, or call it whatever you want. Because some people really don't love the term coach, or they don't identify with the term coach, which not for right now. We've back to that, but there's so many ways to serve people, and that's really at the core. So let's rewind the clock. I would love for you to share a little bit about your journey and take us back to when you weren't doing this, you were doing something else, and how you ended up here supporting people to be successfully unemployed.
Yeah, totally. I love what you just said too. I found that the more people that I serve, the better my life gets and the better other people's lives gets. Like the more people that I serve, it just makes everything so much better. So my passion now is serving people, whether it's through rental properties that are good properties at a lower price point that they can live in a nice place, to teaching people how to become successful and unemployed by investing in real estate, just any way that I can. I just love serving people. Now, I will definitely tell you a story because I got to give a big, broad picture of how I got catapulted into like basically shoved into real estate investing. And I'm so glad this happened. Fast forward to the end very quickly. When I was 37 years old, I was able to quit my job because I had enough rental properties so I didn't have to work anymore. But it didn't start that way. Quickly go back to the beginning. So all my life growing up, I've always been entrepreneurial. Starting businesses. I always had that idea that I like to do that. I had a newspaper route. I was 13 years old. People don't really get newspapers anymore, but I know. Right around my bike.
It
is. It was a great job, business that I had. I'd throw papers at 5 a.m, bang them on garage doors, waking people up. I had a graphic and website design company. I had a skateboard manufacturing business. I had a pizzeria and a convenience store that I started from scratch. And so I was always entrepreneurial. But just like everybody, I was taught and I was following the path that you go to school, you get good grades. Then after you get those good grades, you go to college, spend thousands of dollars getting into debt, get more good grades, and you get a piece of paper, and you go hopefully try to get a career, or they call it a job or a career. And I was doing that. So I was doing IT work in California at one of the local governments there. And as I was working there, my wife and I started having children, and I was still trying to do businesses. Businesses were doing okay, but I'm following the career path like we are all taught that we have to do. So we bought 1 or 2 rental properties at the time because I knew, real estate's really smart. I knew I wanted to be an investor. I knew that's the path that I needed to go. But at the same time, life just got in the way. If you could watch this in the video, you could see my 4 kids in the background. And when my wife had our 4th child, I went on paternity leave. That's where the dad stays home with the mom, changes poopy diapers and bonds with the baby and all that good stuff. And so I'm off for a couple of weeks, and then I go back to work. And it's a regular 9 to 5 sit down desk type job and, doing IT work. But at that week, I get back to work on a Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon. I get a call from my boss's secretary, like the top dog, gives me a call and says, "Dustin, would you please come to the boss's office?" And I said, "Sure." And then I hung up the phone and I paused for a second. I thought, why in the world would they be calling me to the office? Like, this isn't normal. This is really weird. And on top of that, I was thinking, I've seen plenty of movies. Like, this doesn't sound very good.
Yeah, this is fishy. It's Friday afternoon. The weekend's hitting. What's going on?
It was sitting there. I paused and I remembered about 2 months prior, before I went on paternity leave, there was some rumors or some rumbling going on that there could potentially be layoffs in the county. And I immediately shook that off. I said, no way, I've got so much seniority. I've been here 13 years. I get raises all the time. My bosses say I do a fantastic job. I have high seniority. I'm fine. So I get up and I walk down the hallway to my boss's office. Now, Amanda, this hallway isn't very long. In fact, it's kind of short, but every single step I took, it feels like the hallway gets longer and longer and longer. And it feels like my feet become cement bricks. And every step that I take, it gets harder and harder because the weight of everything that I could potentially lose my job is really starting to hit me like lead bricks. Well, I get down the hallway and I turn the corner and I see my boss's door. His door's closed and I see a secretary right there, super sweet, nice old lady. She says, "Dustin, would you please have a seat?" And she's kind of consoled me with her eyes and kind of sheepishly grinning at me because she knows everything about what's going on. I know nothing about what's going on. So I go and I take my seat and I sit in this chair. I start to realize that I could potentially, like, this is probably the time I'm going to lose my job. And if I do, what about all this time working this path that they've told me to do? Get a job, get in debt, go into college, get that piece of paper, get a career. Was that all a waste of my life if this happens? And then I started thinking, oh my goodness, how am I going to feed my family? And if I can't provide money for my family, does that make me a failure as a father? Does that make me a failure as a husband, as a man trying to provide for his family? And as I sit there, my hands get all clammy. My forehead gets all sweaty because I'm just getting so anxious. Everything's just weighing down on me. Well, the door to my boss's office opens up. Out walks a lady, a coworker of mine, with a piece of paper in her hands. She is noticeably distraught, noticeably upset. She's not necessarily crying, but you can tell her world has been totally devastated. She passes by me, and my boss says, "Dustin, would you please come into my office?" I get up, and I go into his office, and I get laid off. Remember, this is the government. Nobody gets fired or laid off from the government, but I did. So if it happened to me, it can happen to anybody. And this is the reason why I'm telling this story, is that I learned 2 valuable lessons right then from this process. So I take my layoff notice and I go back to my desk and I sit down and I realize 2 things sitting there. The first one is I need to get another job. I need to be able to provide for my family. So I was really, really blessed, praise the Lord, to be able to find another job in the same county, another department. They weren't having the trouble with the finances. So I was able to move over and I started working there, which was great. Now, the second thing that I realized sitting in that chair was that I needed to make sure that this never, ever happens to me again. I need to make sure that nobody has the ability to take away my ability to feed my family, to put a roof over our heads. I realized that every single time somebody would ask me a question, "Dustin, what do you do?" I would say, oh, I work for the county, I do IT work for the county, I'm basically projecting my value that I put on myself as in my job. No, my value doesn't come from my job. My value comes from my God, from myself, and from my family. So right then and there, I realized,
So
remember, I said, I needed to be an investor. I knew that, but life got in the way. I said, from now on, I am going to tell everybody I am an investor. It may so happen that 100% of my money comes from my job. That's now my part-time job. I'm a full-time investor. Fast forward, I started buying rental property after rental property, eventually had 30 plus properties where each one making me $250 a month or more in passive income. Once I realized I'm losing money working here because I can make so much more money on my own. And this is another thing that I realized, and everybody else needs to realize this, that you're worth so much more than anybody could ever pay you. And this is how you'll absolutely know this. Your boss is paying you just enough to keep you working without quitting, but not so much money that takes money out of their pocket. So I went to my new boss and I said, hey, boss, I'm laying you off. Here's your layoff notice, 2 weeks notice. And, jokingly. And he said, Dustin, what are you going to do? And I said, I literally don't have to do anything. I have real estate that makes me money without working. And so wrap it up the story by saying this last thing, that if you remember that short hallway that got longer and longer and longer, the worst walk I've ever taken in the world. The last one, I walked away from my job the very, very last time. I've taken this walk thousands of times. Mile and a half walk is in downtown Fresno. I'm a pretty frugal type of guy, so I didn't want to pay for parking. But it was a mile and a half walk. I felt like I was walking on clouds because I knew I would never, ever need a job again. And I've secured the ability to make sure that I take care of my family. And I realize now it was more risky working for somebody else who has the ability to take away my ability to feed my family than me going into real estate and investing. So I'll pause the story because you probably got plenty of questions to ask.
there's so many good, juicy things to talk about from your story. So first off, it's inspiring. And I'm sure everyone listening is like, yes, 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 they can so relate. But one thing that really comes up to me first is something that you said, that when you leave, you said, I'm going to say I'm an investor. And I actually think this is really important because for me, this is a sticking point for so many people, even calling themselves a coach, calling themselves an entrepreneur, because the mind wants to be like, but I'm not solely getting my income from that thing yet, or I don't have enough experience. But truthfully, this is like the big audacious statements that we start to tell ourselves that we embody and believe when we say like, no, I'm a coach, like I run a business full time, right? Because then we tell ourselves so much that we embody the confidence. And then the people that we talk to are like, well, I want to learn from you, right? So important.
Absolutely. That's honestly how I got into actually coaching. And it didn't start with because now I have podcasts and books and YouTube and all that sort of stuff. But it started with me telling people, hey, in like 6 months, I can quit my job. Coworkers, friends, people from church, family members were asking me, well, how are you going to do that? And I tell them I invest in real estate. That's the first question. Second question always came right after that. After I told them what I was doing, they said, can you teach me? I said, you know what? Of course. I'm like your next door neighbor, your friend, whatever. And so I started teaching people one-on-one because they kept asking me. But then I realized it takes a lot of work and a lot of time to teach somebody one-on-one. And they also had great questions, but they were beginner questions. Like they were always the same questions. So what I realized was there's got to be a better way that I can help people. So I wrote a book because I knew all the questions were going to be. And then realized that, man, after I gave that book out, people wanted more. They wanted more coaching. They wanted me to walk them through it. And then I realized I enjoy doing this. Like this is actually really, really fun for me to be able to do this. And if you remember what you said at the beginning, like serving people, like I really enjoy real estate investing, but what I love more is serving people. I get out of bed because I can serve more people. Now, buying another rental property, that's great. No, I appreciate it because that helps me to feed my family. But what gets me out of bed right now is to be able to get on podcasts and talk to people like you and share this out with everybody, because I realize I, number one, have a passion. I know what I'm talking about. And on top of that, I've made it a conscious effort to call myself an investor. And then now calling myself a coach. Becoming a coach was a whole nother hurdle I had to go over because I was like, well, I'm not this guru that's been doing this for, has millions and millions of dollars and flies on jets. But after I realized that the people that coach real estate, that fly on jets, they drive in Lamborghinis, like they're all flashy and they'd say, hey, look at me, you could be like me. I literally never related with those people. I never wanted to talk to them because it was like, I don't want that. But then
That's
I realized,
yeah,
exactly. what I wanted was security for my family. I wanted to be able to provide for my family without having to work for somebody else. And that's what it did with real estate. And then I realized my voice came from my desire to really just not just help people, but realize that there's financial freedom, but you don't have to have all this flashy stuff. So I literally made myself like the opposite of them. I said, hey, everybody, my goal is to quit my job. Let me show you how I did it. If that's your goal, you can come with me. And so all that to say, becoming an investor was a huge hurdle. And then getting into being a coach was a less of a hurdle because I already accomplished the investor type, mentality. I got past that hurdle. But getting into the coaching, it was because so many people kept asking me how to do it. And then I realized I enjoyed helping people to find out how they can do it and then getting them to that first win of buying the first property, eventually quitting their job, which is the goal that most of them have. It's just a blessing to be able to see that as well.
Again, so many great things in what you just said, but one that I want to reiterate is that there are many people out there that have maybe doctoral degrees and lots of fancy things after their names. And you don't need any of that to be a coach. And I want to reiterate, it's one of the primary, pillars of our program is a certification does not make you a coach or a great coach, right? What makes you a great coach from my perspective is a passion and a servant's heart and ability to create results with people, right? I don't know about you, but some of the most talented people or the best professors I ever had in grad school or undergrad were the worst coaches because they didn't know how to people, right? They didn't know how to get in there and get in the mud. And they could give me all the great textbook stuff. And then when it came to real life application, I was left shorthanded, empty-handed because I didn't know. And so you are just, one of many examples of what's possible when you're like, I love doing this thing and I can help you do it. And you didn't necessarily have an exact blueprint. You were just like, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to try this first. Okay. And people still want more. And I'm going to try this next. And I'm going to see how that goes. And for me, that's such a messy and beautiful way of just saying keep going, right? You find your way.
100%. And I realized as I was building my own business, I invest all over the country. So I live in Arizona now. I started when I was living in California, but I invest in Texas, Ohio, and Arizona. I have students that invest all over the place. When I was doing it myself, I came up with not necessarily a step-by-step, but I knew the steps that everybody needed to take. And like you said, I started by teaching just a little bit X, Y, and Z, what I did. And then over time, with more coaching students. And as I started really feeling much more confident, now I'm a coach. I'm a coach and an investor. I'm literally that because I've been doing it for a while now. It's easy for me to say that because obviously now I have coaching students. But when I first tried to get coaching students, I felt so like an imposter syndrome. I was like, man, I don't know if I could do this because I didn't have everything planned out. I didn't have all the courses fancy, all that sort of stuff.
Sure.
But what I did was I just started, and wherever you are, you're ahead of somebody else by however much. It could be, 10 years, it could be 6 months, whatever it might be, but you can help somebody else along. At least that's what I found. And so as I started coaching, I started realizing, okay, and teaching X, Y, and Z, or whatever this whole plan is. I'll give you an example. So I teach people in my investing in real estate how to build the business first. A lot of gurus, quote unquote gurus, will tell you, you buy one property, you make a little bit of money in passive income, you'll get appreciation, and that property is your business. I don't teach that. I teach that's almost opposite. What I do teach is we build a business first, and then once we have a business, then we buy inventory. We put that inventory into our business. So it's a whole different shift. I literally came up with this because the first time I bought my first property, I did what those gurus were saying. And I could have just regurgitated what they said, but I realized that didn't work because I did what they told me to do, find a property. And then I found a property manager, and that property manager started stealing from me. It was like 6 months. It was horrible. She started stealing from me, so I had to fire her and get somebody else. Then I had to figure out the right way. Remember, I said that I've always been business oriented. So with this investing, I said, that didn't work. Let me figure out a new way to do it. And I did. I just applied my business mindset to it. With that, I developed the strategy of basically, let me give you an example of what it looks like. If you're going to build a convenience store, start a convenience store, soda machines, candy bars, and all that good stuff, you're not going to sign a lease on a location, open the doors, and set a box of candy bars in there on the ground. That's what those gurus are basically telling you to do. No, you go out of business in 2 seconds. what you would do is you would build the business. You get the gondolas. Those are shelving units that you put the candy bars on, countertops, cold storage, fountain machines, bank accounts, cash registers, employees, insurance, all that sort of stuff before you buy any inventory. Then once that's all built, then you buy the inventory and you put it into your business. Same thing with real estate investing. You build the entire business, get all the people that are going to work the business for you. Then you buy one property and that property is put into your business. That's how I was able to scale my business so fast, because all I had to do was find another piece of inventory. But in all of that, I realized as I was building my business, I understood the process of what worked. And then all I had to do was document it or basically write it out. And in coaching people, it really is just over time, I would get a little more bits and pieces of it. And I just keep adding to all the coaching. I didn't have to come with this, perfect everything coaching. No, I started and then kept adding to it. Now I have so much that people are like, man, there's so much here. I'm like, I know. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure you have everything so you're not going to lose money.
Oh, I love that. I love that philosophy. And the quote that comes to mind, which I don't remember where I discovered it first, but it's really resonated with me of late, is that success is a terrible teacher.
It 100% is. I've learned so much from my failures. In fact, remember that property manager that actually started stealing from me? My goodness, that was a huge failure. My wife was telling me, you got to fire her. I'm like, but there's nobody else. And like, you got to figure it out. Like, get somebody else. I'm like, okay. And that was one of the light bulb moments for me to realize the wrong way of what the gurus were telling me, the right way, which is building the business first. And now that's like the cornerstone of what I teach everybody. And now they're scaling it. Like one student, it's so amazing. Like seeing people's lives change is absolutely amazing. One student started coaching with me, or I started coaching him. It was December of 2019. So right before COVID happened. So December 2019 happened. The world locked down in 2020. And even through that, in 18 months, he bought 11 duplexes, 22 units, and he's making, I think it was like $7,000 a month in passive income from all these properties because he didn't give up. Even though like the COVID happened, he could have stopped then. But no, number one, he had me to help him keep moving through it. But number two, he just knew that this is going to work. Dustin has proven it. And he's got other students, and I'm learning from him. So because of that, I've realized that my failure of working a job and getting laid off, I had another student say, Dustin, you getting laid off was the best thing for you, but the best thing for all your students, because you wouldn't be doing this. I'm like, that's a good insight. I would not be teaching if I didn't get laid off.
The path was already written, right?
Absolutely. And on top of that, if my property manager didn't steal from me from the very beginning, that's a huge failure. I would not be teaching the way I do, which is totally different than a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, I love that you brought up the COVID thing too, because I run a high level mastermind. We started in the COVID year, I'll call it, was January of 2020. We went through December of that year. And as a community, we really had so much dialogue around like what the world was saying was happening versus what we were actually experiencing in our businesses, right? And I think that's actually pretty true today. Yes, gas prices are high, interest rates are going up. And what I really challenge my people is like, don't fall into the hype of the noise and what the culture around us is saying. Like, use the evidence that's happening, because all 10 of the girls in my mastermind literally built businesses and grew their businesses. Some doubled their revenue during a COVID year. And the rest of the world was like, and I don't want to take that away. There were people struggling and there was stuff we all experienced at some level, but it's like collect the data for you and learn that even in amidst these times, there's opportunities to shift and get savvy. And that's when it really is important to have a coach in your corner or a community in your corner that's like, hey, I get you. I understand your struggles right now. Support me, hold me accountable, show me the way so that, you can create and continue that momentum despite circumstances.
That is 100% correct and true, because as I was going through COVID with all my students, we were hearing a lot of people saying, oh my goodness, people are going to be able to pay their rent because they're not working. And there's the moratorium on mortgages and rent and all that. Like people were really, really worried about their rents going away because the government's saying you don't have to pay your rent. Well, I kid you not. I did not have any issues, like literally, it's just crazy. I had 30 plus properties. I didn't have any issues with any of my tenants not being able to pay their mortgage or their rent. I did not have that. And my students also. So when we're gathering together, I have a membership as well. So I do one-on-one coaching, have a membership, I have a high level membership as well. But we're talking all together, and all the other investors that I know that I'm talking to, I'm helping everybody see that all the people that we're working around that do this, we're not seeing these big problems with rents not coming in. It's just not happening. But people who are outside that don't have this information, that aren't a part of this community, they're thinking, oh, probably, I'm most likely assuming it because I hear this all the time from other people who are curious about it, getting into rentals. But like, what about the foreclosures and the rent, being moratorium? Like, isn't that affecting them? Like, no, in fact, it's actually rents are going up. We see now rents are.
I'm like, our property investments have been amazing the last 2 years.
100%. And so because of that, because that community that we have now helping more people, they're seeing that on their own, it would be so hard because there's so much noise out there. But when you have a community of people that also have done it, in the direction that I've taught them, we all work together and we all help each other out. So all that combined is that's the beauty of being able to coach people, is that we also connect other people together, which that is so much power in the connecting as well.
Yes, I love that. Oh my gosh, such a wealth of information. Your story, I think, is just inspiring to see what a different perspective, looks like. I would love for you to share where my audience can connect with you. If they're interested in investing, just wanting to connect with you and your podcast, share us all the places.
Absolutely. Well, I have a course I'd love to give away for free. Do you mind if I share that with everybody?
I would love that.
Awesome. So you can text the word rental, RENTAL, to 33777. Rental to 33777. I'll literally give you my course, literally 100% for free, show you how to find an area of the country to invest, how to build the business first, how to be able to scale the business so you're being able to quit your job or, be financially independent. So I'd love to give that to you. So you could also go to masterpassiveincome.com/free course. All one word, /free course. I'll give it to you. Plus, I have my podcast, the Master Passive Income Podcast, where it's literally just me. I rarely do interviews. It's just me teaching, just serving, just trying to get all this information out. YouTube channel as well. I also have my podcast called Successfully Unemployed, where I've actually had you, Amanda, on the show. Is it twice now? Yes, twice now. And it's so fantastic, where I just share, because I realized that for me, real estate was by far the best way to become financially independent, become successful and unemployed. But not everybody wants that. There are so many other ways to do it, though. I've literally got like 180 episodes now where I'm just interviewing so many people on how they became successfully unemployed, because there's so many ways out there. So I have that podcast as well. But yeah, it's just great being able to get on podcasts like we're together trying to help so many people change their lives. It's just a blessing to be able to see and be a part of that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you so much. I'm honored that you shared your genius with us, and so grateful for your time.
Thank you so much, Amanda.
One of the most important things you will ever do as a coach is ask questions. So I've put together a simple go-to resource that you can have in your back pocket as a coach of 10 powerful questions I believe every coach should know. So go ahead and head on over to amanda-walker.com /questions to grab yours now.